Well, hello everybody. This is Radio Entrepreneurs, sponsored this week by Suffolk University Startup Boston 2023, where we are physically located. This is quite new for me, or quite back to the future for me, to come back again to inside a studio. And I'm joined, quite excitingly, by my co-host, Evan Macedo, CFO of Sapers and Wallack. Welcome back, Evan.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's a pleasure to be here as always, and first time in Suffolk University over here, so it's a special treat.
Well, and I needed you to protect me because our next person has real intelligence. Mine is a little bit artificial, which he's going to talk about. Zara Perumal, CTO and co-founder of Overwatch Data. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Can you tell us about Overwatch?
Yeah, so Overwatch helps our users take advantage of emerging risks or opportunities in the external data environment. So that's really big. But what we do is we look at dark web data, natural disasters, social media, news, and we try to surface what's relevant to our users and add enough context information so they can actually do something with it instead of just doom scrolling.
Okay, you're right. That is a little vague for someone as low intelligence as me. So I'd like to get more specifics. Can you make it more practical for me?
Yeah, so I'll give you two flavors. So one is for our financial fraud customers. So either big banks or credit card companies. We will literally surface stolen credit cards on the dark web, but we'll also give them tactics that people are discussing. Like you can go to your website, press this button, go here and print free money. And so by us telling them that, they can pass that along to product teams and build a more secure and save money. But a completely different flavor is something for a supply chain use case. So in some cases, we have customers that may want to track battery minerals or materials. And so we can show them how a protest or natural disaster near a key mine in Peru can impact their supply chain because it's one of the major exporters of copper or something like that. So these weird global events that you might not understand how this impacts you, this is some of the stuff we help our customers with.
That's pretty broad, isn't it?
Yes, super broad, yes.
But is there an overhanging sort of intellectual label where you think this all fits under?
Yeah, I think some buzzwords, open, OSINT, risk intelligence, but I think honestly, building an intelligence system that helps our users better take action on these events.
That's a pretty good definition, Evan.
Absolutely. I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I know ChatGPT's come out, and a lot of people are starting to use it. I hear that it's being incorporated into kind of AI for cyber criminals. Are you seeing any, risks or challenges in the marketplace that people are trying to overcome over the next year with that?
Yeah, that's such a fun question.
He's such a show-off.
I love. Team me up. One of my favorite topics. So I think because we're looking at a lot of the dark web things, we see stuff like Worm GPT, or there's one that might be a rumor, but people talk about Whisper to the Beast, Fraud GPT, and there's a lot of ways that I think everyone I use GPT and large language models for our product, for my personal life, to make me more effective in writing sales stuff or even programming, and so do the dark web actors. So we see phishing is something that's, anything social engineering, you can make it a lot more snappy and a lot more engaging if you're using large language models. Things like writing basic exploits that are just slightly different than someone else's, that's some of the stuff they're helping with. We've seen that used for both good and bad.
Good and evil.
Now, are you sitting alone in a dark room doing all this, or is there a team?
Yeah, a little bit of both. We are remote, so I do spend a lot of time working from home in South. But we have an amazing team. So I have two co-founders, Tad and Arjun. They're in Atlanta and San Francisco, respectively. They have incredible, really cool backgrounds. Like Arjun was a diplomat, and Tad used to be in counterterrorism before we all got together for our niche interest of understanding global events. And then we have a larger team of 5 full-time total, and a larger about 10 with our contracting team.
And how are you doing your financing for the team right now? I assume you have to live.
Yes. So we luckily, we did sign our first annual customer, and we have some other pilot customers in the pipeline. But we did Y Combinator last summer, so we're venture backed. We raised our seed round last September, so we have a couple more years of runway, and then hopefully we will get more customers along the way as well.
And I know you have a whole team working, doing probably many different things, but how are you spending your day-to-day time trying to build your company and develop your product?
Yeah,
Good question.
that's a good question. So I'm the CTO, so I will give you the worst explanation of our company. But it's a mix. I think, a lot of it's like meeting, like working with the team to build features for our customer, like, design right now at this level. One of the benefits of being a startup founder is I also get to do technical implementation still, so I do a lot of that at night. But then still, talking to customers, I think that's one of the most valuable things a founder can do. So anytime I can find a customer, talk to them on LinkedIn or in person, and that's usually the mix of like helping our team design, helping the engineers doing all the cool work implement, and then doing some of it myself.
That sounds fantastic. And earlier too, you spoke about the dark web. Sounds like a very scary place for us that are not on it every day. But what are the types of things that you're seeing out on the dark web that our listeners should be aware of? Because they might not know that their data is out there.
Yeah.
And I get mailings. I won't mention who it's from, but I just got a mailing this week from a very large company saying that your data is now on the dark web.
Yeah. The only dark web I have are my dreams.
And maybe the spiders are running too in the morning. It's such an interesting space because I think sort of the definition of like what's the unindexed web, so stuff you can't get to on Google search. A lot of it you access through Tor, and you have to get special browsers, and it's hard. And I think in the normal internet, you have a sense of what's out there, and you have a good feeling. But even for people who investigate the dark web, there could be whole pieces that just because you don't know where to look, you're missing. But I think there's so many ranges from people doing like selling weapons, people selling exploits, but to people doing stuff much worse. And I think for most of us, the stuff that impacts us is more of like the exploits of people who are saying like, oh, I found your login information for your credit card numbers. I'm just going to sell it to someone else who's going to make a quick buck. And I think there's some good things, like I think Google's password manager will alert you and you can like quickly change the passwords, anything else involved. And I think that's where it impacts most of us. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a crazy and scary world out there, and there's a kind of a whole tip. We're at the top of the iceberg. There's like a whole base underneath.
Well, what would you tell someone, an entrepreneur, about information in their company in terms of the dark web and how to, let's say, create policies around their employees and information? Is there anything that you could add and help us with?
Yeah, I think I think it's kind of getting at the whole like cyber threat intelligence, physical security intelligence. And I think there's a few things that really impact. There's like whenever a bunch of credentials are leaked. And so that's like a standard thing that even though like stolen accounts, phishing, like it's not the most advanced way of getting into companies, but it really works in the social engineering side. So one of them is like, the standard like reset your password. It's like this basic cyber hygiene that everyone can Google, but it helps a lot. And then the other thing is, and this isn't really dark web specific, but like to the extent you can stay on top of how people are attacking your industry. So, for example, last week, Google announced like how North Korea is targeting security researchers and doing a lot of, I think, like in the past, like if you kind of are aware of like how people are attacking you or your peer startups, it can help you like kind of get a cheat code so you don't have to, focus on everything because we don't have infinite time as startup people.
As somebody who runs a financial advisory company, cybersecurity is one of the top things I have to focus on a daily basis. It never goes away. And you mentioned phishing. The phishing attempts increase more and more and more every single year that goes by. Every day that goes by. So we use multi-factor authentication for everything now. We advise all of our clients to use it on everything. Are you finding that these cyber criminals are creating creative ways to get around multi-factor authentication?
Yeah, so that's I feel like you've been reading my mind.
You two want to get a room alone and I'll leave.
So that's such an interesting question. So we've seen a lot of
much better than I am.
The OTP bots. So one thing is like, because there's this giant push for two-factor, and I think industry-wide, which is amazing and is absolutely like it shuts the front door on a lot of these bad actors. But there's different ways they can get around it. One of them we've seen is a lot of dark web actors are moving to Telegram because they don't have to set up a new marketplace site every time. They can just set up a group and interact with their folks. And so they have these bots, and the bot, you can message the bot, and then the bot will automate sending the phishing email.
Wow.
Maybe it's using GPT, maybe it's doing something else. They get the response, and maybe they call the user. So there's other ones that do like a synthesized voice, and they'll call the user and say, we're calling from your bank, this, and this. They get the response, and then they just send it back to you on Telegram. And so that's like one of the ways people are trying to get around that. There's some other more exotic, like man in the middle, that I think is harder than the phishing. But yeah, it's kind of wild seeing how involved some of these actors are.
Yeah, I've had to create passcodes that only our CEO knows, and because I'll get a message and I don't know if it's from her anymore. So we have a phone call phrase that we have to make sure we both know.
So that wasn't you texting me this morning?
Nope.
Well, what's the secret phrase?
Who knows? This is Startup Boston at Suffolk University. My name is Jeffrey Davis. My co-host is Evan Macedo from Sapers and Wallack. Excuse all my humor and my jokes to keep things going. Zara, if somebody wants to learn more about Overwatch data, how would they find you?
Yeah, we're a few places. So overwatchdata.ai is our main website. You can find everything about us there. Also, if you search Overwatch Data on LinkedIn, or my name, Zara Perumal, we're on LinkedIn. We use LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm on Instagram too.
Great. Remind everybody, this is Startup Boston at Suffolk University, and this is Radio Entrepreneurs. We'll be back with more stories after this break.